my friends, and welcome to Bill Swerski's Tournament Talk. I'm Thomas Senna. Bill Swerski is out again. He went to SNL 50 recently, and nobody has heard from him since. He just kind of disappeared amidst all the mass chaos in New York. So, in fairness, though, he recently hosted an episode of Tournament Talk that will never see the light of day because of audio issues. So, but I guess according to official canon, Brad might weigh in on this. Bill Swerski still has never hosted an episode of Bill Swerski's Tournament Talk. Try as he did last time.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, that's on the cutting room floor. So, alas, we carry on. So, Tournament Talk is the show in which we compile memorable SNL moments in any given category, break them down in a bracket, and declare a winner. So, every episode, I and Bill are joined by 4 panelists who will break down the bracket and vote on who advances. So far we've done best bits, best cameos, best holiday moments. This week, we're declaring the best musical guest appearances, or musical guest appearance, I should say. There's going to be one champion that we crown today. So without further ado, let's meet the panelists for today. We have co-founder of the Not Ready for Primetime Project, co-host of the early years of SNL, among other things, and yacht rock expert, Brad Robinson. Brad Robinson, what's up, man?
Hey, buddy. Thank you. That title's going to get me in trouble with somebody else on this panel, but thank you.
I thought you were going to yell at me for saying yacht rock, the Y word.
Oh no, that's our friend's domain here. I'm gonna let him take the ball on that.
Yeah. So Jeremy Dove, my co-host at Pop Culture 5, Jose Ruiz's co-host at Bigger Than the Game. And would you consider yourself a yacht rock aficionado?
I'm definitely a big fan. I'm not aficionado, but I definitely am a big fan of it. I don't know. I'm kind of getting toward where some people are like, hey, why do we call it yacht rock? Is that the right name for it? I'm starting to go to that lane, but I definitely love that type of music and definitely always will love the Doobie Brothers.
Yes, well, we're not talking just yacht rock in this episode. And our next panelist, I've talked to about all sorts of different music genres. He's been my guest, my go-to guest for music when I led the SNL Hall of Fame conversations, host of the Matinee Cast, fantastic movie podcast, Ryan McNeil. What's up, man? You ready to do battle? You ready to declare a champion?
Justice for Prince. Sorry. The fact that Prince is still not in the Hall of Fame vexes me deeply. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be representing. Can't wait to get into this. It's good to meet you all. Thank you for bringing me along on this Dog and Pony show.
Yeah, man. When we decided to do music, we thought Ryan McNeil. We thought you would be so good for this. Again, always a go-to music guest over on the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. He says justice for Prince. He's been on that crusade forever, and I'm not the person to yell at about that now. Bill Kenny, actually, our next panelist, probably has more say. He's the person that I think you should yell at now.
I'm just yelling to the void. If you ever walk through downtown Toronto and somebody's yelling at the world about Prince, it's probably me.
Well, you're at the right place then, Ryan.
Good to know. So Bill Kenny, chief conversationalist at the SNL Hall of Fame podcast, SNL Encyclopedia come to life. I'm excited, Bill, to talk to you more in depth about music. We just talked about Aerosmith on the SNL Hall of Fame, but I love just picking your brain. I'm excited to see where you're going with just music in general on SNL.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting. I'm going to say justice for Ubastank. So that's where I'm starting here tonight. Saying it right now, they should be a number 1 seed. I don't know how they didn't make it, but just happy to be here. This is very exciting. Don't get to talk about music very much with SNL, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, justice for Hoobastank, justice for Prince, probably in the same category. People think of Prince and Hoobastank, both icons in the music world. So we're going to be talking about a lot of icons in the music world tonight. Of course, today's topic on Tournament Talk that we'll be breaking down is best musical guest appearance. So we'll have 16, teams or musical guests, if you will. in a bracket. There's going to be 4 regions, so four musical guests per region, as they do in the NCAA tournament. We break them down to regions here. All 4 panelists here will have a vote in every matchup. If the vote goes 2-2, then I'll get to use a vote to break the tie. So that's how the game is played here, and I'm excited to get started here. What do you guys think? You ready to crown a champion?
Thomas, I got off the line with the bank. They said that the check cleared.
Right. Perfect. Every episode, somebody tries to
that's allowed?
bribe me, or Brad, you tried to bribe me the very first episode that you were on.
Mm-hmm.
We will not forget, and I gladly accept it. By the way,
True.
Alrighty, so let's break down the regions, shall we? We'll start with Region 1, fellas. The number 1 overall seed, Jack White. His appearance, season 46, episode 2. That was October 10th, 2020. Your host was Bill Burr. Jack did a couple of songs. We'll get to it. He was a fill-in, which is part of the story of this appearance. He gets the number 1 overall seed. Kind of surprising to me. Not that I don't love this. I mean, it's just surprising, like a pleasant surprise to me that Jack White is so high on this list. So he's the number 1 overall seed. He'll be taking on 16 seed Queen. Season 8, episode 1, season premiere of that season. September 25th, 1982. Your host, Chevy Chase, that episode. So at least one good thing came out of that episode. We had a Queen appearance.
Amen.
Out of a Chevy Chase hosted episode. I had to. I'm so sorry. Oh, man. Also in that region, 8 seed Nirvana. This is their first appearance on SNL from the Rob Morrow hosted episode, January 11th, 1982. They'll be taking on 9 seed Taylor Swift from season 47, episode 6. That was November 13th, 2021. Who could forget? This is aged well, by the way. Jonathan Majors hosted this episode. So everybody's going to look back and fondly remember Jonathan Majors as an SNL host. So
Robert Blake wasn't available.
He was not. Neither was OJ.
No.
So we had Jonathan Majors. So those are our 2 matchups in Region 1. Let's get started with the voting. First matchup, 1 seed Jack White, 16 seed Queen. I will start with Bill Kenny to kick things off.
Ooh, wow. This is a tough one to start with. Queen, one of my all-time favorite bands. It's an interesting time that they come into the show. You can say a lot of different things about Ebersol, but he did up the game with music. He got a lot less Sun Ra and ABBA and a lot more rock and current pop music. And this was a big deal to get them on the show. It was the last time they appeared on American television, but you've got the convergence with Jack White of so many different things. He comes in, as you referenced, Thomas, to replace medium talent Morgan Wallen, who's out making out with every girl in Florida. So he has 2 days notice.
I mean, making out with every girl in Florida,
yes, yeah, that
whatever.
Be, that in itself.
I thought
right,
Bill just hated Florida.
Yeah.
And, the story was told beautifully on the SNL documentary during the 50th. He comes in with 2 days notice and absolutely crushes it. I don't think this would have been my number 1 seed, but this makes the most sense with the songs that he played, including a song from 1918 pandemic. It's just so beautifully done. So I got to go with Jack White here.
All right, 1-0 Jack White. So his song choices, he did a little medley, as you mentioned, Bill. He wove in a song from the 1918 pandemic. He did Ball and Biscuit, which was kind of like the rhythm, like the instrumental to it. And then the second song, Lazaretto, he did nice funk elements to that song. I thought it was a really, really cool performance. Ryan, you were my guest on the SNL Hall of Fame podcast for Jack White. So we've talked about Jack White in depth. Haven't talked about Queen so much, so I'm curious to where you stand on this matchup.
Funny thing about when I looked at the bracket before we sat down, I actually thought that this was going to be tough, even though Jack White was one of my high votes for this whole challenge. because I love Queen, and there's a handful of singular voices in music history, and Freddie Mercury is definitely one. I thought this might be a lot harder before I watched both performances earlier on, and if I didn't know how great Queen was before I watched that performance, it would not have converted me. I don't really know where this fits into the ups and downs of their career and the ups and downs of Freddie Mercury, but as far as an actual performance is concerned, this was lesser Queen. So like, I mean, I love Queen. Like they're fantastic. They're one of the greatest rock bands in music history. That showing was not great for them, for me. So it was an easy Jack White vote for me, along with the fact of everything that you and Bill already mentioned, coming in on short rest. And to put a point on it, he was brought in on Thursday. That's unbelievably late for this.
Right.
And then did this performance that you guys spelled out. So love me some Queen, but this was not their best day.
Yeah, so degree of difficulty too. Jack White has it. Dare me on our podcast, Pop Culture 5. Brad loves when I promote the hell out of our podcast. So let's do it here tonight, man. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
So on our Pop Culture 5 podcast, we did an episode on Queen, 5 essential Queen songs. So I know you and I both love Freddie Mercury. We both respect Brian May, the entire band. I haven't really talked to you much about the White Stripes and Jack White.
Right.
So it's the opposite of Ryan. So I'm really curious about where you land on this.
Yeah, definitely a big White Stripes fan, a big Jack White fan. This is my second time on Bill Swerski's Tournament Talks. The first time, the 116 matchup really shouldn't have been a 116. It was way too close. I'm glad you guys did a traditional 116 where this is an easy slam dunk. Jack White just gets this hands down to the point where I'm kind of with Ryan. I'm surprised whoever put Queen on here. Like, there's so many other performances she could have put on besides this Queen performance. And like you said, Thomas, I love Queen, but no, Jack White nailed it. I love something that hit, socially and culturally what was going on at the times. It was very unique, and it also is a part of SNL lore. So it checks all the boxes for me. So Jack White all day.
All right, Jack White advances. Brad, do you have anything to say about the Queen performance? Any justice for Queen comments here?
I actually like the Queen performance. I think it's a really good performance. I think it shows what a frontman Freddie Mercury was. This is a couple of years before he takes the stage at Live Aids and commands that crowd. But I actually thought the Queen performance was really good. I mean, Jack White is obviously, I think he's a great number one seed in this, and he's definitely my vote. But I got to give love to the Queen performance. Like you said, it was season 8, which was a big season for the show coming back, number one musical act of the season. And remember, that's an episode where your host doesn't show up. So Queen is kind of the star of that show. And I thought they did a great job, especially their second. They do Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Mm-hmm. Great song. Freddie on acoustic guitar, which is great. And then their second song, they do Under Pressure, which was a huge hit, had been out for a year. And I love when Queen does that song and they do it live because they don't lean into the duet that much of David Bowie of it. And it's really Freddie taking over that song. And it's a different version than you hear on the album. And I actually thought both performances
It felt like he was holding back, though. Like that's the wild thing about seeing Under Pressure is like that song, especially like even just the recording of it, he lets loose so much more than what he did there. Like I don't know if he was just like fighting something that day and just like really couldn't go to 11 the way he normally does.
Ryan, he was fighting something. He was fighting with his boyfriend. That's how the story goes. Like earlier that day, and his voice got really hoarse. Like he wore out his voice. And Freddie said he didn't really like this. He said he was disappointed in this appearance.
That adds up. All right.
I love the
insight.
Way to go, Thomas.
Our crack research team got on the case.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's how the story goes. Freddie didn't really actually. He was just disappointed in this performance, and he was holding something back a little bit. That said, Brad, a C+ Freddie Mercury performance is better than like most people. Lead singers still,
but not the best performance of the season though. I got to give it to my man Stevie Wonder for season 8 as the best performance of the season.
I'm actually just happy too. We actually got a Dick Ebersol era performance on this show. I don't know how many we're going to get. So to actually see one, that's a plus. But let me ask you guys this quick question. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. What performance is better, this or the Miley Cyrus performance at the anniversary?
I didn't see the Miley one.
I didn't love the Miley performance.
I didn't like the Miley one either.
So Queen, thank you.
I think this one wins it out. Yeah.
I think they both. No one wins.
To your point, Thomas, even a C plus Freddie Mercury is kind of hard to beat.
Yeah, Jeremy and I established that Freddie is probably, I don't know, pound for pound, maybe the greatest rock singer of all time. I mean, certainly in that Mount Rushmore up there. So a bad Freddie Mercury will still take. But Jack White just totally ripped it. We'll be talking about that performance more as we go along because Jack White advances to face the winner of this next matchup, 8 seed Nirvana from season 17, episode 10. They did Smells Like Teen Spirit, Territorial Pissings was song number 2. Taking on 9 seed Taylor Swift from November of 2021. She did one song, 10-minute song though, so made it worth her while all too well. And also appeared in the 3 Sad Virgins Please Don't Destroy sketch. We'll have to, that's part of the appearance. Sketch appearances are part of the appearance, in my opinion. I want to get more from all of you as far as how you value that. I think this might be a good time to talk about it. But Ryan, I'll start with you. We talked in great length about Dave Grohl. We've talked about this appearance. I want to know how you think it stacks up against the Taylor Swift appearance.
Well, it's funny because I think Taylor is my doing in this ranking. So, and I have a feeling that she's about to get thrown overboard. So I'll go to bat for her. As much as I do, I love the Nirvana appearance, but I love their second appearance more. They were a little bit more sure of themselves. Dave Grohl claims he broke a stick in the drum intro to Smells Like Teen Spirit. I still can't spot it, but he swears on his life that he broke a stick. But you can almost see him mouthing 1, 2, 3, 4. Like he's very, very timid back behind that drum riser. So I like their second appearance a lot more when they were touring Behind in Utero. That's the Charles Barkley episode. Taylor, I mean, this is kind of Taylor like at the very, very top of her game. I don't know where in the world she goes from here. We may have just witnessed the apex of a pop star. I don't know. But to go on to this show and do one number for 10 minutes after releasing like 3 records over the last several years that you haven't played, that takes some stones. And she crushed it. It was a great performance. It was one of those performances that really does stick in my brain more than that first appearance by Nirvana.
Mm-hmm. All right, so 1-0 Taylor Swift. Brad, Ryan was a little unsure. He might be on a Taylor Swift island, I guess. What do you say?
I don't think that island's that small. I had this Taylor Swift performance in my rankings as well. Low, but it was in my rankings. I remember watching this live and maybe not blown away, but I was thoroughly impressed by her coming out and doing a 10-minute song. I totally remember this. I think it's a great performance. I also agree a little bit, Thomas, about the extra weight to being in a sketch or in something else. She's in that really great video, 3 Sad Virgins. But I will give the push to Nirvana on this. I think first of all they blow the roof off the place. I think it's a great performance. You just watching it and they're on the top of their game. They're great. But not only for their performance, but I think they're very key in opening up the floodgate of SNL. This episode Nirvana's on is sandwiched in between James Taylor as musical guest and Robbie Robertson. And to go even farther back before that was Hammer and CNC
Yes.
Music Factory. So Nirvana kind of opens the door for stuff like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam. As you said, Ryan, Nirvana comes back. I think they're very vital in just opening up the show to this genre of music. And I think that would put them over the edge for me a little bit. So I get my vote to Nirvana.
All right, hotly contested battle so far, 1-1. Bill Kenny, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm with Ryan here. I had Taylor pretty high up too. I think this won't be the only time this comes up, that the lore of the performance has kind of overtaken the actual performance over the time. As Brad mentions, this is kind of opening the door to, bigger rock bands, alternative bands coming onto the show. But I don't think this is their best performance. I don't think it's better than Pearl Jam or Stone Temple Pilots performance later on this year and the following year. Taylor comes on right as the start. Now, she's already been a superstar for about a decade at this point, but this is right before the Eras Tour. This is right before she becomes one of the biggest global icons out there. And she has the longest performance in SNL history with this song. And it's just kind of, you're at the beginning of seeing the next step for somebody like Taylor Swift. I can't imagine if she does come back, how big that will be. But yeah, this is huge, and I absolutely count her appearing in the sketch as well. Even though that was less of a thing before the 90s, Thomas, you and I talked about that with Aerosmith. Mm-hmm. It still counts, and it's one of those great moments with PDD getting their foot in the door early on in their career. Yeah. So Taylor moves on for me.
Awesome. 2-1 Taylor Swift. Jeremy, Nirvana and grunge in general, that's like one of the bedrocks of our podcast, Pop Culture 5, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast.
Yes, sir.
We're also a Taylor Swift-friendly podcast. We're pro Taylor Swift.
Yes, we are.
We are. So I want to know where you stand here.
Well, a lot of great points being made by everybody, honestly, and this is a tough one because the biggest internal debate I had preparing for this was, are we weighing the lore and what it means for the artist's career for SNL over just like the best musical performance? And I think we call it best musical performance. That's what Bill Swerski, we're got to rep him. So in honor of Bill Swerski, I got to go with Taylor Swift because I agree with Ryan that I always thought Nirvana's second appearance with Charles Barkley was better. Now, Brad's right. When they play Smells Like Teen Spirit, Nirvana rips it. But I got to look at what Taylor was doing at this time. To what Bill Kenny said, it was right before the Eras Tour. She kind of had a real tough time in her career with, suing. She's suing for her, publishing rights and all that. And to go on here, the safe bet would have been to play like Shake It Off or I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In. All
something
that
off of Midnight's even, like Midnight's wasn't even that old at the time. She's like, no, I'm not touching that. We're playing. Yeah.
To do this, right. Exactly. I agree, Ryan, to do a 10-minute song. That's gutsy to have that one performance. And to me, rewatching, I remember watching it live, but rewatching it, there's no like, oh man, I'm not like checking my watch. The whole 10 minutes, I'm enthralled. Yeah. So I got to give it to Taylor Swift. Like she just killed it.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think? Pleasant surprise here.
I'm stunned. I'm going down swinging, but and I say this as a Nirvana fan too. It just I'm surprised and happily surprised.
For sure. And you referenced that Pearl Jam performance that same season. I would have that up there. They crushed, especially Alive was awesome. I know they're not on this list. Bill, I agree with you. The Stone Temple Pilots performance I would have up there ahead. And I do think that Nirvana's second performance was a little better. This might have been more, especially with the Smells Like Teen Spirit of it all. This might have been more, I guess, like important, quote unquote. But man, when they got to Heart Shaped Box, Rate Me in that Charles Barkley episode, that they really killed it there. But alas, Taylor Swift moves on to the second round. She'll be taking on Jack White. Let's go to Region 2. 4 seed Aerosmith. That was the Tom Hanks hosted episode from season 15 in February of 1990. They did Janie's Got a Gun. Monkey on My Back also appeared in a Wayne's World sketch. Taking on 13 seed Eminem from October of 2000, season 26 premiere. That was Stan with Dido and The Real Slim Shady. Also in this region, 5 seed Elvis Costello from season 3. That was the infamous one. Who could forget Miskell Spillman hosting that episode? Elvis Costello performed Watching the Detectives and then famously Radio as the second song. He'll be taking on 12 seed Billie Eilish, season 45 season premiere. Woody Harrelson, your host. She did Bad Guy, awesome performance, and I Love You in that appearance. So let's start up top. 4 seed Aerosmith, 13 seed Eminem. I'm going to start with you, Jeremy.
I got to go with Aerosmith here, and I will, to your earlier point, Thomas. If you're a musical guest and you appear in a sketch, I only count that if there's music involved with the sketch. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
You got a lot of rules over there. Jesus.
Hey,
Man's got to have principles.
Yeah, stand on principles, Brad. That's what we do at Pop Culture 5.
Okay.
You know,
it's not a video podcast. You don't have to point at the sweatshirt. No one's going to see that.
Now they do.
Now they know. Now they know. Thank you for helping us promote. Appreciate it, Brad. But I thought Aerosmith was just really batting 1,000 this night. I really do feel like with Eminem, I like the Stan performance. I didn't like his Real Slim Shady. So that's kind of what threw me off with going farther with him. And I'm always going to give someone who's more well-rounded with their performance than someone who I liked one song and didn't like your other song. So all that being said, I'm going with Aerosmith.
Aerosmith gets it 1-0. Ryan, I want to see where you stand.
I loved Aerosmith when I was around this age, but I feel like
I don't like where this is going.
Pardon me if I've played this record before. Their next performance was better. When they showed up in '93 after Get a Grip, they were kind of a little bit higher up the rock pantheon at that point. They were really clicking on all cylinders. They opened it with like the crowd yelling 1, 2, 3 for crying, the way that Steven Tyler was setting up every time he did a show. The one thing I gotta say about Eminem that actually surprised me rewatching this performance of Stan, he sampled and looped a Dido song. Did Sarah McLachlan say no? Like that is kind of a bananas thing in hip hop to do, like to take an adult contemporary soft song and say that's the hook. Like that takes some that takes some doing. I'm going with Eminem because again, the next time with Aerosmith would have been better.
Okay, 1-1. Brad, what do you think?
I am going Aerosmith, and you and Bill are possibly partly to blame in this. In the world of SNL, we talk about recency bias all the time, and the fact that you two guys had a great episode on Aerosmith recently had this in my mind. But I love Aerosmith. I think I love that album Pump. I thought they played 2 great songs, including a second song, Monkey on My Back, which is like not even a B-side, which is great. And I do give extra points for being in that great Wayne's World sketch. And this is one of the best episodes of all time, and I think they are a contributing factor to it.
Yeah, I think extra points. I think Ryan, that's kind of what did it for me. As far as those 2 performances, like Crying was a great performance on SNL, but just kind of the enormity of this one, I think, kind of superseded that. Bill, we did, as Brad mentioned, we did an episode on Aerosmith. Eminem is actually, you're doing an episode on SNL Hall of Fame this season, so 2 SNL Hall of Fame candidates here.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with Eminem. I'm going to tie it up here. I think these are 2 really, really great performances. Jeremy says that it only counts if they're in a sketch if they sing, but Eminem's on Weekend Update with Horatio and Jerry Minor rapping. So there is something besides his performances here. I think the Stan performance is one of his best performances of the 7 times that he appears on the show. Real Slim Shady, not as great as somebody else said, but I think it is still can be held up against a lot of the other stuff. It's coming off his huge VMAs where he did the whole thing. All those guys come out in the wife beaters looking just like Slim. So I'm giving it to Eminem here.
All right, so 2-2. So this is the first tie, I guess, that I'm breaking.
Earn your keep.
Yep. It's that massive contract that Brad and Gary gave me. Probably no surprise. I think I am going to go with Aerosmith here. I think just historical importance means a lot to me as far as SNL goes. And I mean, I know they replay and reference the Stan performance quite a bit. I think it was a really nice touch that Eminem brought Dido actually to perform with him.
He did that again.
That's a very good point. He actually had Dido on there. Yeah,
he did that at the
cool.
Grammys.
Was that the first time though?
At the Grammys, at the Grammys he did that too.
But on SNL, he did
SNL
it again with a number off Recovery, not Relapse. But he brought out the person who sang the hook to perform with him.
I want to say it was Sarah Bareilles. I could be mistaken.
In that vein,
and I think.
Yeah, someone one of those adult contemporary. I used to actually, around this time, I worked for an adult contemporary radio station, and we played the original Dido song all the time. So when I heard this Eminem version, I was like, oh my gosh, they're playing.
Yeah.
He used this song to loop. That was I thought it was really interesting, and it was a great performance by Eminem and Dido with Stan. But just like Janie's Got a Gun, it was a really tight performance. The band had a lot of urgency. I think that was an awesome performance. Monkey on My Back, very energetic. I think Aerosmith brought the goods on that either. So to me, they were 2 for 2 with their performances. And that Wayne's World appearance, we know how much Aerosmith and Wayne's World and stuff would be intertwined with the movies and stuff going forward. They would reference Aerosmith in the sketches. So to bring them on to play with Wayne and Garth and do all of that, I just think the moment was just so big. And to me, there wasn't really much of a difference in quality between like Stan and Janie's Got a Gun. I think both of those were almost equal. So I'm kind of nitpicking here, but Aerosmith moves on here in this matchup.
Right on. I think to correct myself, Eminem brought Elton John to the Grammys.
Yeah.
That's
right. Yeah. So we got 5 seed Elvis Costello from season 3, taking on 12 seed Billie Eilish from season 45. Interesting to me. You have historical, like something that still gets talked about 47 years later versus something more recent. So I'm super curious about this, and I want to start with Brad here.
I remember watching the Billie Eilish performance when it happened and being like blown away. Like, how did she do this? And I watched it again recently and I was still blown away figuring out how did she do this? That first song was a Bad Guy, right?
Yeah.
Amazing performance. It's very indicative of what acts can do now on the show, like taking the space and just recreating something brand new. Didn't love the second song very much. Elvis Costello, I thought he played 2 great songs, Watching the Detective and Radio, and the exposing the liveness of the show, of that whole, which again, now everybody knows it, but coming out, stopping, wait, there's no need to play this, and busting into it, a completely unplanned, unknown song, I think really set the tone. I think this matchup comes down to an argument of like historical, like you said, Thomas, like the liveness of the show and like against artistic creativity and like what you do with the presence. And I'm going to lean more towards the historical impact and what it meant for the show and being a live performance itself. And I liked both songs. I like 2 songs as opposed to 1.
Okay. That's fair. That's a fair reason. Bill, do you remember watching the Elvis Costello performance live?
Who are you, John Schneider? Come on, Thomas. No, I was like 2, but thank you. Now, this is another example, I think, of the lore kind of building this up. I think the second performance, Radio, is really, really good. I don't love the first song by Elvis here. Billy changed the game. Like, this is, Kanye had started to do this. He's not on this list, right?
No.
He had started to change. She brought it to another level. And they talk about this on one of the documentaries as well, how everybody was in front of a brick wall for the first 35 years, 40 years of the show. And now they come on and it's a performance piece along with that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think Billy brings both aspects to it. So the songs are very good. and the wowness of seeing her do this. I got to go to the show this fall for the first time, and I was so thrilled that she was the musical guest, because seeing her in person was just such a thrill. And I think the second performance is very good. It shows her range. It's much softer song with "I Love You," right? I think I'm going to give it to Billy here.
All right, 1-1. Jeremy, this is some good points are being brought up about like historical significance versus like, I mean, we saw Billie Eilish's just fantastic stage production with the first song. Where do you stand on all the factors that are being weighed here?
Yeah, I wish these two weren't paired up in the first round. This could be like a good Final Four matchup, like with these two. So it stinks either way. But I have to go with Brad, and I got to go with Elvis Costello, because one thing that we always talk about, whether we're on this podcast, Thomas, or we're on SNL Hall of Fame, it's the live factor. And Elvis Costello's performance really brought out that live factor and the lure of, hey, we can do what we want. We're on live. And also, I agree with Elvis Costello. Like, it was stupid that people were protesting that they shouldn't play radio. And I think history is on his side. Like, that was the right choice. But I think as amazing as what Billie Eilish doing, her version of Fred Astaire, I got to go with live, because that's what we always think of first with Saturday Night Live. So I got to go with Elvis Costello.
Oh, wow. Yeah. 2-1 here. Ryan, Billie Eilish is one of my favorite artists to emerge in the last 10 years. I think I've talked to you briefly about her. I'm pretty sure we're kind of on the same page with her.
The last Hall of Fame episode I did, I think I was going to see her show within a few weeks. And she puts on an amazing show. If anybody has a chance to see Billie Eilish, run, don't walk. Which is to say that I am actually voting for Billie. I like the liveness of the Elvis moment. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm jaded or not, but it doesn't hit me as hard. Like, it's kind of one of those moments, like they talk about how he was banned from the show for years and years. But by the time they got around to some of these anniversary specials, there he was stopping the show again to play with the Beastie Boys. So it's like, how angry were we really? I'm going to go with Billy.
They actually replayed that episode the following Christmas. Like,
of course, yeah. So how bad could it have been? It's no My Baloney is what I mean, is what I'm saying, or whatever song that was that they never touch. I'm going with Billy. Like you said, she wasn't the first one to play with the staging, but anytime somebody does play with the staging, Lizzo did this as well. Megan Thee Stallion did this as well, twice. It just seems to make things just that little bit more interesting. Like it's like they've already taken away the net because it's live. Now they take away the second net. They're going to do something a little bit different where something can go wrong and it can all. There's kind of a reason why they just play this in front of that station. So I'm going with that. And her second number, it's not one of her more famous songs. Like, she has more singles off that for second album. But it actually does really indicate where she's going to go with her career. Like, you can kind of draw a line from this to her Oscar-winning song with the Barbie soundtrack. What Was I Made For? It's that softer singing that she does incredibly well. So watching her show that off live too, I'm going with that one. So sorry, Elvis. I mean, you're an important person in the history of the show. But if we're going, 1-1 here, I'm going to go with Billy.
All right.
Good luck, Ref.
Yeah. No, I agree with Jeremy. I echo your sentiments at the top, man. Like, this could have been a hell of a Final Four matchup. This was a tough 12-5 kind of matchup here. I think something that sways me here is along the lines of what Brad said. I think as far as enjoying two songs from the performance rather than one, which is why one of the reasons why I'm choosing Billie Eilish, because I actually really liked both Billie Eilish songs. I Love You, I think, was a really pretty quiet song. Ryan, you mentioned the Barbie song. I think it kind of was a prelude to my favorite song off her new album, Wildflowers. That was just a completely gorgeous song.
Yeah.
which I think she performed on SNL in her most recent. I think that was one of the songs that she performed. But she does quiet songs really, really well. That stage design at the first song, we'll get more into it in a bit. But I think, those factors just led me here. And Jeremy, I agree as far as the Elvis Costello exposing the live aspect. But I think Billie Eilish does that here with her performance too. Like it could have gone wrong.
It could have.
And you can see the seams in the performance. Like you can see the box kind of when they rotate it, you can see the box kind of shaking. It's not like totally perfect and glossy. You can still kind of see the seams of the set design.
I know it's not popular to say, but I think we all kind of joked about it. Kanye doing it first is kind of why I went with Elvis. Like if she would have been before Kanye, I probably would have voted her. But I like I said, it's tough either way. There's no like wrong answer. These are both all time performances. But I feel you.
Yeah, much respect to Elvis Costello too. And the whole band from SNL thing always gets overblown, no matter who it is. I think it's just fun lore or like clickbait. Like if some entertainment clickbaity sites struggling for content, they'll go with the who was banned from SNL. But so we have Aerosmith, Billie Eilish facing off next round. Let's go to Region 3. 3 seed U2. Season 30, Episode 6. That was Luke Wilson hosting in November of 2004. They did Vertigo. They did Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own. They did a special treat for everybody. They did I Will Follow. And then they did something else that didn't air that Ryan and I, and probably all of us, would have loved to see, that fourth song that they evidently performed. So U2 3 seed taking on 14 seed Neil Young. Season premiere of season 15. Your host, Bruce Willis, Rockin' in the Free World, was performed. And they did Needle and the Damage Done and No More. Also in that region, 6 seed Sinead O'Connor. Season 18, Episode 2. That was an infamous one. Your host, Tim Robbins. Success Has Made a Failure of Our Home, first song. And of course, everybody remembers War as the second song. Taking on 11 seed Kendrick Lamar from Season 40, Episode 6. Woody Harrelson hosting. Kendrick performed I. And the second song was Pay For It. So let's go up top. U2, your number 3 seed, taking on Neil Young. Let's go with Bill Kenny to start us off.
So I love the Neil Young performance. I know Dennis Miller has said this was the best performance ever on SNL as far as music. He was a huge get at this point in time, like 1989, having him come in, the anti-establishment guy who was really finding a new voice with the new generation. And they are really great performances. But you and Ryan talked about this a lot so wonderfully on the SNL Hall of Fame. This U2 performance is just off the charts. Sometimes you Can't Make It on Your Own is one of my favorite songs. It's one of mine and my wife's songs. And but that ending, having the show end like this, having the cast on stage, Amy Poehler bawling as Bono approaches her, using the whole space, exploring the space, as Walken would say, it's just other level. It's not something that we've seen a lot of in the history of the show. So I've got to give it to U2 here.
All right, 1-0 U2. Jeremy, on our podcast, Pop Culture 5, we did a
U2 everywhere. Listen to podcasts.
We did a
Do you guys have
U2.
merch?
So you can let us know. We did a U2 episode. I picked I Will Follow as an essential U2 song.
Great choice.
How cool was it that they actually did the Good Nights on this episode with I Will Follow?
Yeah, and as we mentioned on that episode of our podcast, like much as we're fans of Bono and U2, sometimes they can be very serious, which like we respect, but they don't always show that fun side. And I think that song is a great choice that shows their fun. Like, hey, we love the rock, and this performance is what I go to, which shows their fun side, and it was so unique in SNL lore. And we're talking about a whole performance here because I love Neil. If we had just one song, I might go with what Neil Young did here. Like, I love that one song that much. But if you compare it to the whole performance, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't give it to U2. But it pains me because Rocket in the Free World, that one song was, I still get blown away when I play it now, over 35 years later. So it's amazing, but I got to go with U2.
All right, 2-0 U2. I've talked at length with Ryan about U2, so I'm going to hold off right this second because I want to go to Brad. And does the power of one song versus like just a whole like performance, like where do you stand on this, Brad? I've never really even talked to you about Neil Young or U2.
I feel like, Thomas, when one makes their selections in here, they should really take personal bias out of it and award votes on merit.
Oh,
I didn't do that in this. I voted for Neil Young out of spite. I don't like U2. I'm not a U2 fan. I have a long, weird history with U2. I saw them in concert only once, and it was like with an ex-girlfriend, and we were in the rafters, and it was like a horrible show. And then I got really upset like after 9/11, like when they were doing the Super Bowl and they thought they were like the voice of America. And I was like, fuck, that's Bruce Springsteen's job. Shut up, U2. So I knew they were going to win, but I'm voting for Neil Young on this. I mean, Lorne Michaels has been trying to get Neil Young on the show since season 4 when he made a deal with his manager to put Devo on. And some 25 years later, they finally came through. I do like the performances. He wasn't even on my list. This isn't even my pick, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just, I can't vote. I don't like U2. Sorry.
Well, we appreciate you trauma dumping on us.
Thank you.
Man, that's rough. Oh man. Ryan, how did your experience seeing U2 at the Sphere in Vegas compare to Brad's experience?
Well, I think it all comes back to my relationship with my mother. In these tense times, it really kills me to send the only Canadian on this bracket home. I'm so sorry, Uncle Neil. This U2 performance, I mean, it's similar to what I was saying about the Taylor performance, about how it's like at the peak of her game, and we don't know if she's going up from here, or maybe we're witnessing her at the apex. This was the apex of U2. They would never actually get back here again, much as they would want to try. And I think it was really cool that SNL is part of that 2004 Vertigo moment. And yeah, doing 3 songs, closing the night, showing everybody what they still had. They're one of my all-time favorite bands, so this vote was a gimme.
All right, U2 advances. Though,
sorry, Uncle Neil.
I know.
Please don't take away my healthcare.
Man, I do agree, though. Rocket in the Free World, this is one of the purely like best sounding performances I've ever seen on
and
SNL.
Needle in the Damage Done. Like that is a beautiful performance of that song.
They're great tunes. He does great songs.
Oh,
it's
no,
true.
These are great. And I'm a huge Neil Young fan. Like that, I don't get often get like chances to talk about Neil Young, but I love Neil Young. And Rockin' in the Free World and Needle in the Damage Done and No More, just a fantastic all-around performance. I know Neil Young is very proud of this performance. There's a good video. He's talking to Conan O'Brien about it. Because everybody, Conan, you mentioned Dennis Miller remembers this fondly. That was just like a special kind of thing. That reverb, urgency of the performance just made it sound real huge. So
you can download that. You can download that episode onto your Ponyo.
Yeah, right. I think
ask your parents, kids.
I think Neil Young was underseeded here, honestly, like 14 seed.
I agree.
Yeah, I think he could have been like top 5 seed, something.
One of the things about the Neil Young performance is it kind of touches on something Ryan said earlier. And as I was watching so many of these, rewatching these like clips, just the musical performance again, trying to realize just how hard it's got to be for an artist to do one song. To come out and really deliver. And it gets a little different when you start, performance pieces like Billie Eilish. But I remember Neil Young has talked about, he was like running around backstage and doing push-ups and trying to get himself all worked up to deliver Rockin' in the Free World as he would after playing for an hour and a half in front of 50,000 people to try to in this small space. And I really realized it or took note of that, I should say, like watching these performances of some of these guys. Just how do you deliver? Just stepping on a stage and saying go.
This, and I agree, Brad. And this song, and people correct me if I'm not remembering it right, when Questlove's amazing documentary for SNL 50 on the musical performances, this was the biggest surprise for me that this wasn't highlighted in that documentary. I know there's a lot of tough choices to make, but I was surprised that he didn't highlight Neil Young's performance in the doc. That's how great that performance was.
Now, I know Questlove is someone who would appreciate that performance too. I'm sure. So U2 advances. No offense, we all love that Neil Young performance. So U2 advances to face the winner of, which in my opinion is the most interesting matchup of the first round. So I'm so curious. I have no idea where anybody's going to go with this. It's Sinead O'Connor from October of '92, taking on 11 seed Kendrick Lamar from season 40, episode 6. That was November of 2014. I want to kick things off with Dare Me here.
Boy, this is tough. Very, very different performances, but also very similar performances too, in a way. When I think about these two, I honestly, Thomas, if this was maybe a few weeks ago, would have gone with Kendrick. But honestly, the conversation that you and I had after we recorded the podcast that we've named already, we recorded an episode and talked about Sinead O'Connor's performance and how beautiful the song that she sang, like the music that she gave, like the songs were such powerful performances. And then you add into it just how risky what she did, ripping up the picture of the Pope, and how infamous that is in SNL lore, in her career, in pop music, in pop culture lore, and the backlash that she took, and the outrage, and seeing Lorne Michaels having to go on Nightline and talk about it. It's just such an infamous moment. But besides that, the music was beautiful in the statement she was making, and it's a defining moment of pop culture in the past 35 years. So I got to go with Sinead O'Connor.
All right. Yeah, Bill, do you think that people remember this? I mean, they obviously remember it because she ripped up a picture of the Pope, but do you think what Jeremy says has some merit as far as look at the actual performance too?
Yeah, the performance is great. As they, again, keep referencing this documentary, it was just so amazing to see. And to see her get some kind of mea culpas, she's obviously passed at this point. So too little, too late. But it's a great performance. They talk about how she wanted the camera to pan into her face closer and closer. Doing an a cappella song in an environment like that is very daring in itself. And the way that the show treated her after this, the next week they bring out Joe Pesci and he rips up a picture of her. Jan Hooks comes back and they make some jabs at Sinead. So it's very, very dark the way that the show went after this. So to have the documentary kind of pointed out, have Miley come on and do Nothing Compares to You at the 50th was another great moment, kind of almost like apologizing to her. So yeah, the performance itself is great. And as Al Franken said, she was right.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan, we both love Kendrick. Kendrick's really the most innovative, great hip hop artist to come along in the last 10, 15 years. And he put his all into that first song, it was super intense. You could tell he just put everything into it. I don't want this conversation to be had without pointing out how passionate Kendrick was that night too.
This was one of the ones that I put forward as well. This Kendrick performance, he is the single greatest concert I have ever seen. Once again, if you can see him, run, don't walk. This showing on SNL it could be subtitled "Believe the Hype." He shows up with just so much power, so much confidence. Like, he's such a showman. He's wearing those cool contact lenses that make his eyes look like completely black that he does now and then. And that's just for his first number, I, which is like really well performed because he performs it with a live guitarist and a live drummer, which is neat to see because you're kind of thinking in your head that a rapper is going to go to a track, not necessarily to a live band behind them. And then his second number that he performs when he's got the band behind him, he's got Chantal Kreviazuk singing the hook after the beginning, another Canadian who I'm about to send home. I'm really not representing tonight.
Oh no.
So it's incredible to watch. He would come back a few more times and just keep showing you very much what he's made of, like well before he got, his Super Bowl chance and this entire 2024 that he just dominated. It's just an incredible showing for his first time out, but it's not Sinead for reasons already stated. And even for the fact that she's brilliant in making this the second number. Like, she knows that if she does this at the 12 o'clock 12:15 slot, that she is going to be pulled from that in a second and it may not even make it.
Yep.
So she's like, I need to calm the waters before I bomb right into them. And this is the flip side of what we were saying with the Elvis Costello slot, with where does it play in the lore? It plays in the lore of the live element of the show, but with a very, very real point behind it. And so for that reason, and for the fact that she's just so damn talented, I got to go with Sinead.
Mm-hmm. So that's a clean sweep right now. Sinead advances. Brad, I'm curious. A simple question I've never asked. Are you a hip hop fan?
Not huge. I know older hip hop. I'm definitely more of an older hip hop fan than a newer hip hop fan.
What did you think of Kendrick's performance here?
I thought it was amazing. It was an entrance of me, an artist I don't know or didn't know very well. And I'm always excited when I see them in Saturday Night Live the last, 5-10 years, where it's great. I've heard about them. I want to see them, and did not disappoint. Watched it recently again. And same thing. I was like, yeah, this is really good. I actually would have voted. My vote is for Kendrick. Actually, I think I looked at it at the two performances. I thought he put on a better show. I don't think I put as much weight into the final moment of war that everybody else is. And all the lore, and people have talked about it so many times, and how, how they turned on her and then came back to her. Like, I didn't factor that in a lot. I went on the performance and what they did. And I thought Kendrick should tip me more.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the second Kendrick song maybe disappointed me just a little bit, because that was more of a Chantal Kreviazuk and J-Rock performance. I think I was a little disappointed that Kendrick wasn't more involved in that song. I think so. Maybe I dock a few points for that, but so I'm really kind of judging that performance on his first song. I wish he maybe would have picked something else and kind of showed that same performance style as the first one. But not slamming Kendrick, amazing artist, great performance. But Sinead O'Connor does advance. That was one of the more interesting matchups going in. Sinead's performance still fascinates me for a lot of reasons that we'll get into next round, because she's taken on U2. She advances there. I want to move on to Region 4. We have second seed David Bowie from season 5, December of 79. He did The Man Who Sold the World. He did TVC 15, taken on 15 seed The Strokes from season 27. That was January of 02. Of course, they performed last night. They performed Hard to Explain. At the bottom of that region, we have 7 seed Foo Fighters from season 21. That was December of 95. I'll Stick Around and For All the Cows. Those are the two songs they chose. And season 3, episode 11, 10 seed Billy Joel. Another Chevy Chase hosted episode. See, Chevy got 2 of his musical guests on here. So I guess that's his only, that's the only good thing that came out of Chevy hosted shows. That's second. That's number 2
Wow.
slam on Chevy Chase as a host for me. So Billy Joel performed Only the Good Die Young and Just the Way You Are. So I want to start here with Brad to kick things off here. David Bowie versus The Strokes.
This is tough for me. These are both high on my list. I love both of these performances. The Strokes is a rare instance of a band that I never heard before I saw them on the show, and their performance made me a fan. And I went out and bought their album, and I've been a Strokes fan ever since. I think they're a great band. They do a great performance. Kind of how I mentioned again, Nirvana, very similar. Like after the Strokes were on the show, White Stripes were on, Jet was on, the Killers came on, Green Day came back for the first time in a decade. I feel like they also kind of opened the door for kind of the indie rock or like real rock and roll bands to come back on the show. But that being said, I think David Bowie's performance is amazing. You guys have talked about, people playing in front of a brick wall. He's, I think, the first artist to actually do something a little bit different, and he does it amazingly well, which I'm hoping we talk about more. But I love the Strokes, but David Bowie is my pick.
Yeah, Jeremy. So we have a musical icon in David Bowie performing his first performance on SNL, and a band that was, people might forget, but 20 years ago, I mean, they led this rock revival in New York City. They were like at the forefront. And then the bands that Brad mentioned after that, it's like similar vein. Yeah, as I would throw in there too. So a lot of bands came out of that New York City scene, but the Strokes were like the pioneers, I think, of that movement.
No, I'm a Strokes fan. I really like them a lot. And I agree with everything that Brad said and what you said, Thomas. Like what they did for indie rock at that time in the 2000s, like was really important, and I think doesn't get talked about, in my opinion, enough. But like I said before, for the 116 matchup, I'm glad you guys got it right this time, where you made it easy. This is a good 215 matchup. Those should be like more easier competitions, and I think this one is a slam dunk. I think David Bowie did so right. Because this was the last episode of the 1970s for SNL, and what a way to close out the 70s with what David Bowie did. And when you think about SNL, we've mentioned it here, and you've heard it a lot with all the stuff for SNL 50. It's the music and the visual, and he's one of the first ones I think of to bring those both together and just really kill it for his performances. And I think I think he was maybe my 1 seed, or no, my 2. My 1 seed I put for this, so I have to go with David Bowie because he just really nailed, especially at a time when I don't think the visual was really hitting in those first 5 years. They had great performances, but the visual wasn't there. David Bowie just blew the house down with that performance. So David Bowie.
Yeah, Bill Kenny, is this like an easy, typical 215 matchup for you?
It is. I took my ex-girlfriend to see the Strokes, and it was no. I'm just kidding. My personal bias, I will say, I do not care for the Strokes. I'm not a big fan of them, but I don't think this performance is very good. And you're going up again, as everybody said, this powerhouse in David Bowie. The puppet bodies still freak me out, but it's so innovative for 1979. Get to see, and the costumes. I mean, everything about it is just so ahead of its time, as Bowie often was. So I'm pushing him through.
Yeah, Ryan, you'll have your say on David Bowie. He advances to the next round. I don't think that's a big surprise. Do you want to have anything to say about the Strokes and this performance in particular as we bid them farewell?
I like the Strokes, and I like the Strokes at the time of this performance. What Brad was saying is 100% correct. Like, they were very much at the forefront of this rock revival that was happening in the face of a lot of pop. A lot of pop at the turn of the millennium. But I don't know how much coke Julian Casablancas is on during this performance, but he does not look there at all. And I know in a way with the Strokes, that's kind of a feature, not a bug, but he is just
thing. Yeah.
It does not suit what they're doing at all. So like when I was watching that back, I'm like, no, this is not aging very well as a as a vibe. So I like the Strokes then. I still like them now. But looking at that performance in a capsule, I'm like, sorry, guys.
Yeah, was Julian Casablancas on drugs? Almost certainly for this.
The question is not if, it's how much.
How much and what
Correct.
Yeah.
combination.
Yeah, exactly.
But I actually agree with
the first
Brad.
person on that show we've asked that question.
Yeah. I agree with Brad, though.
Before him,
I thought
clean.
I thought this was a good performance, though. I think
I think so
night
too. I thought it was
good.
a great performance.
Hard to explain.
Thank
I thought
you.
both of them were really good. So I think both. I think especially Bill. I think you're downplaying the performance a little bit. If you're not a fan, that's fair. But I think I think Julian, maybe being on a substance is a feature of the Strokes.
So, I mean, to compare apples to apples, if you look at this performance and compare it to the first time the White Stripes showed up about a year later, and there's like less than half of them there, it's just so much more energetic, so much louder, so much more vibrant, not hurt in any way, shape by the fact that they're there in a shock of red and white. That to me is more emblematic of that new century rock revival.
Well said.
Well said. Yeah, no, that's fair.
I'm good for one.
Yeah. All right, David Bowie advancing to face our final first-round matchup. We have 7-seed Foo Fighters. This was from December 1995. Anthony Edwards hosting against 10-seed Billy Joel from Season 3, Episode 11. I'm going to start with Bill Kenny, kick things off with this matchup.
This is the hardest one personally for me because Billy Joel is probably my favorite artist of all time, and Foo Fighters is probably my favorite band of all time. So I'm really picking between favorite children here. But to look at it from purely logistical, as far as the musical performance, I've got to go with, as Anthony Edwards says, the Foo Fighters. They're so new that he uses the in front of it. This is a year and a half after Nirvana. Like, this is very fresh. To see, Dave Grohl without a beard, jarring in itself. But this is such a great performance of so many that we get from them. They're a friend of the show now. He was so well featured in a lot of the documentaries that we saw. And both songs are just fantastic. For All the Cows is so well done. Maybe one of their top 2 or 3 songs that they've ever done on SNL. So I'm pushing Foo through.
Yeah, Brad, it would be a wonderful twin build to see the Foo Fighters with the Talking Heads, don't you think?
Indeed it would be. I like the Billy Joel performance. I think his Only the Good Die Young is great. It's one of my favorite single performances of the early era. I don't love his second song, even though he plays it well. But I've got to go Foo Fighters. I think it's like another level up, the Foo Fighters performance.
All right, 2-0 Foo Fighters. Ryan, we obviously talked about this performance in our wonderful, in my opinion, Dave Grohl episode. That I don't know if, I think maybe a couple people more than us like that Dave Grohl episode, but I completely geeked out over that one. But I'm a little confused as to why it's this particular Foo Fighters performance that's on here. Like, Ryan, does that make sense? Do you maybe see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, because you're not the only one. When we talked about them at length, I mentioned how I think the first 2 times we see Foo Fighters, they don't really seem fully formed yet. The first time they seem like a band that just really got together that year. And then even the next time they still seem a little doe-eyed. Like, it's only until like the 3rd time or so that they really feel like the Foo Fighters that everybody now knows and loves. So just because of representing which Foo Fighters we've chosen, I'm going to go with Billy Joel. I love Billy Joel. I love this era of Billy Joel a lot. Only the Good Die Young is my karaoke song. I'm going, like, Billy Joel brought his A game and Foo Fighters brought their B game in this particular slot. So I'm going with Billy.
He keeps Billy Joel alive. Jeremy, am I wrong for giving Billy Joel bonus points for that amazing head of hair that he sported during this performance?
Not at all. Right on, man.
Wasn't that?
You got great hair. You got it. Like, I obviously don't have it. Never really did. But I can't let my bad fortune. I can't like knock someone for having great hair. Billy has it. He looks great on his SNL performance. I gotta say, this is the least. Like, it's just so underwhelming. This matchup, like for people who know March Madness, this would be a play-in game.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'll go a step further. I would be if this was like Joe Lenardi, they'd be like the first 4 out.
Be an
It's not
I'd
who's
be in that
game.
group.
It's not who's going to
Yeah.
win. It's who's going to lose slower.
Pretty much. Like this would be a play-in at best. Like at best. So with that being said, I kind of feel the way Ryan does. Like the Foo Fighters give such great performances later on. I think if you would have picked one of their later performances, it would have been a slam dunk. But I'm going to go with Billy Joel because I think of all of it. Like I think he brings what Billy Joel brings to me. So I don't think either one of these are all-time performances, to be quite honest. But if I have to pick, I agree. I don't think the Foo Fighters, they were still figuring themselves out when they came on for this performance. I got to go with Billy Joel.
All right. Wow. 2-2.
All right, ref. What do you got?
The ref's coming in, deciding vote. This is really, really tough for me. Because there's honestly 2 other Foo Fighters performances that I would put over this one at least. But I still enjoyed this one a little more than I enjoyed the Billy Joel one. I wish Billy Joel's second song was better. I really wanted to vote for Billy Joel in this matchup, but I loved Only the Good Die Young. Loved his hair. I just wish that second song was more enjoyable.
It's a tough
to
second
me.
song.
Yeah.
It's a tough second song.
So I'm going to have to, and they're probably going to get their asses kicked in the next round, so it's fine. But I'm
playing game.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Foo Fighters, and I'll mention while I'll get more in depth as to my real kind of protest with this one, I guess here. But I'll advance Foo Fighters, and we can have this discussion a little bit more next round. So sorry, Billy Joel. Amazing shampoo and conditioner, whatever you were using, horse shampoo back in the 70s, but I'm going to have to advance Foo Fighters. So we're on to the next round. First matchup from Region 1 seed Jack White, 9 seed Taylor Swift, both very recent. This will be really, really interesting. I want to go to Ryan to kick things off.
I'm giving points for level of difficulty with Jack White coming in on 2 days rest. The blues number that he plays in the middle, the Jesus Gonna Come Round or whatever it's called. He loves to throw in these songs that not many people have heard of, that really help him make a point. He loves old blues stuff. So, talking about the flu pandemic at the time of, the COVID-19 pandemic, and starting off the whole thing with his contribution to a huge Beyonce song, all of that comes together for something really quite singular. As singular as Taylor doing the 10-minute version of All Too Well is, she got a whole week. She got a whole off season to prepare for that, because that was the season premiere. Yes.
It was episode 6. It might have been after a break, but
she had a while. So yeah. I'm giving Jack my vote on this one.
All right, Brad, does degree of difficulty play a factor for you there?
I think so. Totally. Although I think they both have high degree of difficulty. Again, to put a 10-minute video song performance together, I think it's high level of difficulty. But I have to go with Jack White. Everything Ryan said. I think you can't underestimate Ryan's point. If you get a call on a Wednesday and you show up on a Thursday and all of a sudden you're performing, I think there's a lot to that. And he performs them well. It's one thing. It's he came in at the last minute and covered, but he covered well. And both his first and second songs were both top-notch Jack White. So I go with Jack White.
All right, Bill, I'm going to give you the task of either pissing off the Swifties and becoming an enemy to them, or keeping her alive. Here, your choice, my man.
Since probably know what the outcome is going to be, I am not going to not only not piss off the Swifties, but piss off my daughter, who has every album and runs around the house singing her songs. I'm going to go with Taylor here just to be contrary, because I do think not only is it impressive, not many artists in the history of SNL get even 5, 6, 7 minutes to do a song. She gets 10. And her album had dropped the day before. So that's impressive as well. That's not something that we see all the time. Obviously, they try to promote their new albums and things like that. But this was all the hype of everything that was going on with this coming out, and having the video playing behind her with Sadie Sink was amazing. So I'm going with Taylor here.
All right, Taylor stays alive. Jeremy, she did sing in 3 Sad Virgins, and very well. I thought she was really good. I think she understood the jokes. I thought that was a really good sketch. So what do you think of this?
I love this Taylor performance. I really do. But she impressed me. But I think Jack White, for those, I remember when this performance, I remember both performances happened, but I remember it was weird, even though Jack White had been around for, 20 years at that point to a lot of people. There was a lot of people who didn't know Jack White who were blown away with that SNL performance. And I think he kind of cemented as the most interesting, most dynamic rock star to me of the 21st century. Like, that performance did it. And to do it in that way that had a very much of a feel of Kurt Cobain, Where Did You Sleep Last Night, from that Unplugged performance. He kind of echoed that. I'll keep repeating it to go on to really put in what was happening in real time with COVID-19, to find a way to put that into it in a classy way. I just have to go with this Jack White performance, because he just kind of cemented what I already felt, but just he's the most dynamic rock star of the 21st century with that performance.
All right, Jack White advances. For any angry Swifties, you can send your complaints to the Not Ready for Primetime Project, Brad Robinson, Gary Seath. Those are the men responsible for this injustice.
Please rate and review.
By the way, this Taylor Swift appearance broke the standby line procedure. So that was kind of like a monumental thing. It changed the standby line procedure.
Not surprising.
As we know it. Yes, all the Swifties just totally so it used to be where you would go in person to get like the number, your reservation number. Swifties broke that. So they changed it to an email system afterward, because it was damn near a riot at 30 Rock. So they made it email based. So this performance has that too. I guess that's SNL groundbreaking. It just kind of forever altered the standby line process. So good job, Swifties. Jack White advances though to the Final Four. He's going to take on the winner of the next matchup, 4-seed Aerosmith, taken on 12 seed Billie Eilish. And I think this is going to be difficult for Bill Kenny, so I want to start with him.
It is difficult, but I think the Aerosmith performance, Thomas, as you and I talked about, is so amazing. The 80s is just lacking so much rock music. There's nothing on SNL. We get no heavy metal groups on SNL. We don't get any rock and roll groups for the most part, especially as we move into the later part of the 80s. Aerosmith, right at the beginning of the 90s, breaks that mold, becomes one of the darlings of the show, coming back as much as they did. And the Wayne's World sketch, as has already been pointed out, is so key to the lore of Wayne's World, along with the lore of Aerosmith. So I'm going to push Aerosmith through here.
All right, 1-0 Aerosmith. Brad, do you agree with what Bill said?
I do. I think the Aerosmith is a quality, 10 out of 10 performance. The extra nod for being in a sketch, especially against Billie Eilish. Yeah, definitely Aerosmith.
Especially against Billie Eilish. Oh my.
Well, I just mean she only had she had the one great song. I didn't like that second song. So it's their whole 2 songs and a sketch versus, to me, really her one song just outweighs the other.
Okay. No, that's fair. Jeremy, do you agree?
Yeah, I actually agree with Brad. I'm going to take a step further. I didn't even love Billie Eilish's musical performance. I thought it was okay. I thought the visual was what was key with that. So I think Aerosmith killed it with all their songs that for this performance. So to me, this is kind of an easier pick. I'm going with Aerosmith.
Yeah, so Aerosmith advances. Ryan, if I'm being honest, I liked I Love You as a song more than Bad Guy. As a bad guy, I can understand why she performed that. It was her hit, and I loved the visual element. But as a song, I wish the song was stronger to match the visual performance of it. I actually liked I Love You better.
I mean, it's there's something to be said for song selection. There's a lot to be said for song selection when it comes to SNL. That's why I'm actually sticking with Billy in this head to head, because this Aerosmith record that they're playing, it goes pretty deep in terms of singles. And they don't reach for any of those. They don't reach for Love in an Elevator. They don't reach for What It Takes, which could have been a pretty cool number. I've seen it. I've seen them play that. So to go to Monkey on My Back, which they do well, but it's just kind of a strange choice, whereas I really like Billy choosing I Love You in lieu of some of her other singles off that record. So I mean, that's the thing. The Billy performance overall just seems like a stronger night out than the Aerosmith performance, and because I'm already outnumbered anyway, I don't have any qualms with championing Billy over a band that I grew up loving and adoring, especially this era of the band. But Monkey on My Back just kind of makes me scratch my head.
Yeah, well, that Billie Eilish performance was on my list too. So I think it was definitely, especially in modern times, one of the most memorable performances. If anybody has time, if they haven't seen it, there's a really cool video that SNL put out it's on YouTube now. You can go check it out. How the visual, how Bad Guy, like the stage thing, was actually made, and it's a really neat story. It was Billie's. I mean, she took inspiration from Fred Astaire and all that, but it shows her even in her bedroom, have it with like a shoebox, and she was kind of simulating here's how it would turn at this part. So she choreographed all of that and made it sync with the music and stuff. So I think it was really neat. She really took a lot of pride in that, put a lot of work into it, and she's become a really big staple of SNL over the last few years. And in my opinion, Billie Eilish, really good host.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time she
That's
returns
true.
as a host, I'll be excited for a Billie Eilish episode. So I think she's really woven herself into the fabric of SNL currently. So she does not advance. Aerosmith will advance to face Jack White in the Final Four. Matchup from Region 3. We have 3-seed U2 performing 3 songs that night of November 20th, 2004, taking on 6-seed Sinead O'Connor. Let's go with Ryan. I want to kick things off with you.
All Irish matchup in the in the conference. Um, much as it pains me to do this, I need to vote against you two in this case and go with Sinead, because people may have forgotten that at the time this happened, Sinead was a big bloody deal. She was a Grammy winner. She was number one on the charts. This wasn't like some indie artist going on there to make a point. This was somebody going on there with an awful lot to lose and use the platform for something that did her not a lick of good. And that takes a lot of bravery. Along with the fact that her voice is so beautiful in both of the numbers that she does. She doesn't really sing singles in this one, which it's a choice. It's very much in there with the Billie Eilish singing "I Love You" or Aerosmith singing "Monkey Off My Back." And yeah, her for what she did in this moment, it resonates for me more than the U2 performance, which is more of a top of their game flex.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Sinead O'Connor up. Jeremy, I know you've kind of maybe not come around, because I know you've always respected Sinead O'Connor and her performance, but maybe warming up to the idea of her maybe being in this competition and having a realistic shot to advance.
Yeah, I definitely thought she should be in it. I think it had been so long since I looked at just the music with that. I saw the Pope ripping the picture. I've seen that. I can
Mhm.
see it in my sleep. But the music has been a while, so I think credit to you bringing that up. Maybe re-examining the songs again, which I had seen, but it had been a long time. And I think with ripping up the picture of the Pope, with the powerful performances, I will give the edge to her over U2. And I do like U2 a lot and what they did in that performance. And it was very fun. And it was to me, a different side of U2 and Bono, which I liked. But just with what Sinead O'Connor did and putting it on the line and really just bringing a powerful performance to, 30 Rock, I have to give it to her.
Okay, 2-0 Sinead. I want to keep a little suspense here. Bill Kenny, I'm going to turn it over to you now with your vote.
Yeah, I've got to move Sinead along as well. I think for watching the show, having never missed an episode in almost 40 years, this is one of those moments that I can remember where I was as it happened. The fade with no applause, as no one knew really how to react to what had just happened, and as everyone's already said, like, this is just so seminal of a moment. She was only 2 years removed from having the biggest single of the year. Doesn't play that either time she comes on the show. So this is not she is a one-hit wonder by all stretch of how that's defined, but she is a big superstar at this point. No one knows that she's not going to have another hit, and this performance may be a big part of that because she is shunned by the music industry after this, along with SNL. So she gave it all up and does it so well. So I've got to move Sinead on as well.
Oh man, I'm a little surprised Sinead's moving on. Brad, if I gave you floor seats and said you could go with somebody that you liked, will you give U2 another shot?
Totally. I obviously didn't pick either of these two to advance, but I think I would have picked U2 actually between these two. I think, all smart ass aside, like, they're a very good band. They did have a great performance. That ending is one of the most iconic endings to a show. I probably would have. I mean, I would. I'm going to vote U2.
Yeah, I want SNL to release that fourth song. Maybe fifth song. I don't know. Maybe they play all damn night, but I know they're about to play another song after I Will Follow. Yeah, that would have just been awesome to be in that audience. But Sinead O'Connor advances to the Final Four, kind of a surprise. Let's see who she'll face in the semifinals. We have 2-seed David Bowie from season 5. Martin Sheen, your host, coming off of Apocalypse Now, against 7-seed Foo Fighters from December of 1995. I want to go. Let's go to Dare Me to kick things off.
Yeah, another easy one here. Glad makes it easy for me. Can save my voice for the heavy hitters. But David Bowie, no question about it. It's not even the best Foo Fighters SNL performance, so gotta give the Bowie.
All right, Bill, as a big Foo Fighters fan, and I know you really enjoyed this performance and stuff, I guess talk about, is it their first one? I mean, they're great. I love any Foo Fighters performance, but what about this first appearance kind of meant a lot to you as a fan?
I think it's interesting, as I said, that this is so soon after Nirvana, and the cultural significance of losing Kurt Cobain. Nobody really knowing who Dave Grohl was outside of rock circles. It wasn't like, oh, well, the drummer from Nirvana is going to become a huge star with another band. Nobody thought that in 1993, 94. So to have them come on at this point in time, and this era of SNL, we've just started the Will Ferrell era. We're 7 episodes in to the show basically being revived from almost the verge of cancellation with Will and Molly and Sherry. And so I think that's kind of a really interesting pop culture moment, not pop culture 5, but pop culture moment of the crossing of the crossing of
the bell we can ring,
two very big moments to have this band who's going to become huge in a show that was on the verge of cancellation still being around 30 years later.
Now that wasn't us that time, Brad. That was Bill.
We are innocent.
Let the
I
record
smell
show
collusion.
that was Bill
Collusion.
Kenny who said that, who, by the way, is going to be on the Sopranos characters episode of Pop Culture 5 with us coming up.
Yes, absolutely.
Ding.
So who is your vote again, Bill?
Culture 5.
Oh,
Pop
right.
Culture 5.
Come on. I'm going to go with Foo here.
Okay, go with Foo. Bill, you know what my favorite sketch of the night was of this Anthony Edwards episode? The Hulk Hogan talk show. That's what I remember. That's what I remember this episode for.
Great sketch.
Yeah, that's awesome sketch. So it's 1-1. I want to go to Ryan McNeil for your vote.
Bowie does. I mean, Bowie never really Bowie went on a bit of a walk. Bowie and Prince, they both kind of went on this wander for their real prime years, and didn't really get to show that off on SNL. So this is kind of him just before he's going to go on a walk, really kind of taking everybody into the art gallery and taking them on the weird tour and looking at the weird art before he's going to like push them towards the cheese and wine and take off for a while. So, seeing him with the aliens behind him who sometimes wheel him out there in this great big huge David Byrne suit like he's Hannibal Lecter or something, and then the next number there in the back reading newspapers. This is such a cool number. This whole, like, he does 3 songs in this night. It's so good. Foo Fighters, love them in their relationship to this show, but this was not their best showing. So put those 2 things together and my vote is for Bowie.
All right, Brad. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like almost every tournament bracket, whatever, there's a team that like it's luck of the draw. Like easy win. Not that Bowie needed it, but I feel like he got the draw on this one. It's like easy advance.
Yeah, I agree. So David Bowie advances. The 2 that I would, as far as Foo Fighters goes, I think their 2020 performance of Times Like These might be the single best performance I've ever seen anybody give on SNL. And maybe that's just my own personal taste. It was chill inducing to me. It just had all like, it was like an urgency of the moment kind of thing. That was the election.
I love the year where they do the Christmas show.
Yeah, the Christmas show is great.
Their Christmas performance was so fun with them in the sweaters and playing the Peanut song. And I mean, even Taylor's in a sweater with their arms ripped off. Like that one to me, like that would have been a harder choice for me.
Yeah, that's a tough choice. Also, the from season 25 when they did Learn to Fly and Stacked Actors in the Dylan McDermott episode. I thought that was great. That was Dave Grohl being more confident as a front man. I think there's so many Foo Fighters. I mean, justice for Dave Grohl as far as being in the SNL Hall of Fame, Bill. Do something about that. I've been trying. I tried to strong arm Jamie and kind of stack the ballot box, but to no avail for
me. Look where that got you.
Well, maybe they should have moved on here, Thomas. They could have gotten some more pub.
If only. So we got a Final Four here. I think it's a really good Final Four. Bunch of heavyweight performances. I'm definitely intrigued. So we have 1 seed out of Region 1, Jack White, against 4 overall seed out of Region 2. We got Aerosmith. I want to start with Brad. Let's kick things off here, man.
Ooh. This is tough because Aerosmith was my highest pick in my rankings. I love the performance. I love the episode. I love the band. I love the fact that, I think they came with a chip on their shoulder that they never were on the show in the 70s, and they finally made it. But the Jack White just had it checks every box. The only thing he didn't do wasn't in a sketch, but he didn't need to because he just owned the musical stage so much with those 2 songs. I mean, even his second song, Lazaretto, is a ripper. I mean, it's awesome. He's just it's great. Jack White.
Yeah, Jack White. Bill, I want to see Jack White in more sketches, because he's so synonymous with SNL. He's done everything. I would like to see him try his hand at being in sketches.
Yeah, it'd be great to see him do double duty at some point. I'm moving him on as well. I think often SNL is a time capsule, and we didn't get to talk about my boy Paul Simon. Got to bring that up at least once every Not Ready for Primetime project. But his performance of the boxer during 9/11 is seminal to the time capsuleness of SNL. But this performance, along with Miley, the previous spring doing "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd, are the two musical moments that stick out to me during COVID. Because they're very different because that was obviously not live. But Jack White coming in here as he did. We had just started the Saturday Night Network, so this was something that, second episode in was just a wow moment, and like, oh, this is going to be a very interesting season.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see how this ages 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, it's a good call. I'm less sure of where Jeremy is going to go, I think, than Ryan, so I want to hear from Jeremy first.
It's going to be I'll make it a 3-0 here because I got to go with Jack White. And I appreciate Bill bringing up Paul Simon because I didn't love Paul Simon singing of the boxer, even though I love that song. But that moment was so huge and so synonymous with SNL, so synonymous with that moment of 9/11. And I think you got to say the same thing about what Jack White did, where we didn't have we're looking for live content, and like SNL coming back was very weird. We didn't know what it would be like. And in a way, and I don't know, maybe y'all might think I'm being dramatic, but that kind of made it seem like, as far as SNL and COVID, we're going to be okay. Like, that performance made me feel that way. And I just think, we've already said it on 2 days' notice as well. It's just mind-blowing, but he just brought the house down.
All right, he advances. Would it have been a clean sweep, Ryan, for you?
Of course it would have.
Yeah.
We've made a lot of him coming in with little notice. Even if he came in with 5 days notice, watch him just shred in these 2 songs. Like, him and the band that he's got playing with him, they kind of make that stage feel even smaller than it actually is. But at the same time, they're just so loud and so energetic, and he's hopping around like one of his feet is on fire, and it's just so fun of a performance. This guy, he's so damn talented, and this like maybe the best he's ever been, and that's saying something for him because he always brings his best.
All right, clean sweep. Jack White is in the championship game, the number 1 overall seed. Brad?
I got to ask Bill, you mentioned Paul Simon. I actually had Paul Simon on my list, didn't make the cut. But if you were picking a Paul Simon appearance, what appearance would you have picked?
I think I would have picked his very first, just because of the uniqueness of that episode, that or the George Harrison episode. So
I had the George Harrison on mine.
Yeah, that would be tough. I think the George Harrison technically is a better performance overall, but just the uniqueness of having the second episode of a show that nobody understands, nobody knows what it's going to be, have him do 11 songs, or it's wild to think about.
Which show is it where he dresses up as a turkey?
Season
that was the George
2.
Harrison, yeah,
because that's something special.
Yeah,
it's a little unfair though, I will say, because he was the host. It was a double duty, so he's doing more than just the musical guest. Because to your point about that, he's in the great cold open, and then the monologue's great with the turkey outfit. And he keeps singing a lot. But I did have him, Bill. I did have him on my list.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was shocked, Brad. That was like the biggest surprise of this whole tournament to me was I saw Paul Simon.
The man.
Guilt by association. I don't care. So we have
Paul Simon do to you, Brad.
Yeah. We have Jack White facing, to me, such an interesting matchup. I love that we get to celebrate both of these performances. So we have, out of Region 3, 6 seed Sinead O'Connor. She did Success Has Made a Failure of Our Home for her first song, War, a chilling performance of War in the second song, and against 2 seed David Bowie, one of the best, and I guess in our panel's opinion, probably the best musical performance of the first 5 seasons. It seems like just so memorable. So Sinead O'Connor, David Bowie, with the chance to move on to the championship. I'm curious to see what, Ryan, let's start with you.
This is a tough one. This might be the toughest one we've looked at, for me anyway, so far, because the Bowie performance is so beautiful, so emblematic of what made him so special. The Sinead performance in the history of the show, I believe, is singular. And it's going to be kind of tough to knock off in the end. And it was actually one of the things I was worried about going into this whole podcast is there any way we could not end this with Sinead? And maybe I may have spoke too soon. But for me, because that performance is singular, and while David Bowie is doing what he does best at the top of his game, I still need to go with Sinead O'Connor for level of risk.
All right, 1-0 Sinead O'Connor. Jeremy, how familiar are you with the Bob Marley version of War and how it might kind of compare and contrast with what Sinead did on that stage that night?
Very familiar with it. Big Bob Marley fan. And I think for that performance, I liked what Sinead did more. I think just what she'd gone through, where she'd been, like where she's from, like you kind of hear that just in that performance. And I think that, so as much to do that song and to top it, I think that performance topped Bob Marley. Like I don't think of Bob Marley's version. I think of what Sinead O'Connor did. I got to go with Sinead O'Connor because David Bowie's big thing was the visual, which was amazing, but Sinead with the ripping up of the Pope and just how that looked and how dark and just the way the stage, she had the visual was cool with, in a way, with her as well. It was very different. It was very much more understated, but it's still, I could still picture how she looked, how the stage looked, how dark it, like it just hit in that way. So even she kind of takes a little bit away of what made Bowie's performance special. She had that too. So I got to go with Sinead O'Connor.
Wow, Sinead O'Connor on the precipice of the championship game. Brad, are we going to make this interesting?
Yeah, I gotta go David Bowie. The performance, I think every like the level of difficulty or the risk that everyone keeps talking about Sinead O'Connor isn't so much the performance. It's what she did at the end and the effect it had after. And it's this like falls into the lore of it. But if you look at the performances of what was done on the show proper, not after the fact, just between the hours of 11:30 and 1, I think David Bowie's is far superior. I think as an artist, what he did, especially at that time, again, where all that artists were really doing was just getting up there and singing their song in front of a microphone, that he took that chance to explore and do something different that would then get replicated years and years on and build upon for 40 some odd years. I think you can trace back to that. You know, he did 3 songs, which is always a special thing if you get 3 songs. He did 3 songs well. Each one had a different aspect to it and a different thing to it. You know, and I don't think people know David Bowie's performance. Like, I know we know and a lot of super fans know, but I don't, everybody knows of the Sinead O'Connor performance. And everybody wants to talk about it and it's a great performance. I'm not knocking it, but like the Bowie performance is amazing. And if you watch it for what it is and when it was, it is stellar. And I got to pick Bowie.
All right, Bill, do you think Bowie's performance is something that has been like unfortunately lost to time, like past SNL nerd circles?
Yeah, it definitely has. I don't think it's the greatest performance of the 70s, as you said, Thomas. That has to go to ABBA. But
of course,
this is an interesting
Not
one.
Boz
because
Skaggs?
Hey, that's a low blow.
You don't Lido Shuffle.
I don't know where the man stands on Boz Skaggs. I was asking.
I love Lido Shuffle. I don't
you.
know about the performance on SNL, but Lido Shuffle is
Bill,
fantastic.
He should have played it. Anyway, sorry.
But not only the risk that Sinead takes here, but the fact that it's done acoustically. You can count on one hand the amount of times that's happened on SNL. And I think that in itself is a risk. Never mind everything that comes along with that. To perform like that in front of a live studio audience for millions of viewers at home is not something that a lot of people would do. Obviously Unplugged comes along at some point, but that's all pre-recorded. They can cut and paste that. That doesn't have to be done live as Sinead does here. So this is an easy one.
All right, Sinead advances.
Easy? It's an easy one?
Yeah, I
Wow.
think I gotta be honest. I'm glad Bill said it. I love what Bowie did, but Brad, I disagree. Where I think if she would have done some songs that didn't connect, like to what ripping up the picture of the Pope,
Right.
then
Yeah,
I would
yeah, yeah.
see you. But
Yeah.
her performances, like it fell in sync with what she would do at the end,
Right.
which to me it makes that ripping up of the Pope part of the performance.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the Elvis Costello playing like radio, and then she rips it up or something. Then it's like, oh, okay. It's
Right.
like it all was building up to what she did at the end.
Okay.
And for Bowie's credit, man, like I think we're talking 1979 heading into 1980. He really lived up to his reputation as maybe the visual musical artist of his time. He had never been on SNL. And so I can imagine him going on doing a TV performance on SNL. It's like people have certain expectations of David Bowie, and I think he might have exceeded them. He tried something so innovative that befit like David Bowie and what he was as an artist. So I wish more people would go back and familiarize themselves with that performance.
Well, I want to give Questlove credit here because I said I was surprised he didn't have Neil Young, but I was grateful in the doc he highlights Bowie's performance and gives it its proper due there. So I also want to give credit to him on that one because I think, to everyone's credit, a lot of people don't think about. Maybe that's because Bowie's such an icon. I don't know, but people forget that performance. But I'm glad in the documentary Questlove highlighted it.
Yeah, for sure. Just everybody go back and check out that Bowie performance. It's just amazing. So we have championship matchup. Honestly, a matchup that surprises me. I didn't expect either of these performances, either of these appearances to make the championship when we started brainstorming this episode. But here we are, and I'm excited for it. 1 seed Jack White, season 46, episode 2, October 10th, 2020. Your host, Bill Burr, taking on 6 seed Sinead O'Connor, season 18, episode 2, October 3rd, 1992. Tim Robbins, your host. Let's start with Bill Kenny to kick things off.
Oh, Thomas! Now this one's not easy.
No.
I'm not really sure where to go with this, other than to say Jack White. This performance, his history with the show is going to give him the edge for me. One of the only musical guests, maybe the only musical guest to get a 5-timer jacket. He got it at the end of that unfortunate Woody Harrelson episode. Deserved it a lot more than Woody did. Jack is not only a friend of the show, but this performance just supersedes everything else that came before it. So I'm going with Jack here.
All right, 1-0 Jack White. Hell of a matchup, Jeremy. This is tough. Tough for me.
Yeah, this is really hard. I definitely knew one of these I thought would be in the championship. The other one I'm surprised by, but I think I'm going to agree with Bill. I got to go with Jack White, and I think the COVID year will be, as time goes on in SNL, be talked about more and more. And I think with that, Jack White's performance it's already got a lot of buzz. It'll keep growing. I think Sinead O'Connor's moment will definitely always be a part of SNL history, but I think Jack White, for everything that we've already said, it'll just keep growing lore and lore. And I think people will talk about that as the greatest performance in the show's history. So I got to go with Jack White.
All right, it's 2-0 Jack White. Ryan, even without the ripping up of the Pope, which Jeremy said so great, like that's part of the song. Like that's part of like what the song means to her and everything. So it's hard to like separate that. But even if she hadn't done that, it would still be one of the most chill-inducing, amazing performances I've ever seen on SNL. Even without that moment, I think and I hope that doesn't get lost. Just how wonderful a performance that was.
I mean, what you're touching on is actually like the grander conversation around Sinead O'Connor is if you mention her, the first thing anybody's going to think of is, oh, she's the one who ripped up the picture of the Pope. And, maybe the next thing they think of, oh, she's that one who sang the Prince cover. The reality is she's immensely talented. And she had a lot of great music before Nothing Compares to You and a lot of great music after that unfortunately just all kind of sank to the bottom of the ecosystem because this moment got her blackballed around the world, basically. Like she never would be anywhere close to the level of fame she was in this moment. There's another podcast that's not Pop Culture 5, but Dolly Parton's America, where they talk to Dolly about why she's not more politically active. And, even though like if you look at Dolly close enough, you can kind of see where her beliefs are. And in that moment, she says, well, I've thought about that lots of times, especially being friends with Lily Tomlin and with Jane Fonda. And certainly their politics are front and center. And I look to myself at what happened to the Dixie Chicks and what happened to their career and how they still had some success after they spoke out about the war in Iraq, but they were never quite the same as where they were before that moment. And they got blackballed, not to the degree that Sinead did, but they certainly did get blackballed within their industry. And to be clear, the Dixie Chicks were right. And to be even clearer, so was Sinead. So to do that, like, it's one thing for a band like the Dixie Chicks, the Chicks now, to say that in a private concert that the news happens to carry out. It's a whole other thing to go onto live television and say, I may pay a very big price for this, but I don't care because I think it's worth it. And again, to be clear, Sinead is very right. SNL has kind of tried to own this moment and kind of tried to, in their weird way, apologize without actually apologizing, but I don't think they've ever gone far enough with it. And so I'm going to say that Sinead, for this moment of going beyond the show, going beyond her music, going beyond her as an individual, and making a statement in front of the world, live in front of the world, definitely gets my vote over an artist I adore, have seen almost more than any other band. Love them, and will love them for the rest of my life. But this moment in pop culture, and certainly in the history of the show, is singular.
Yeah, Ryan was my guest on SNL Hall of Fame for Jack White, and we geeked out about Jack White. So that's a strong statement coming from Ryan. Brad, do you think Jack White's performance, when people think about great SNL performances, it was only 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago? Do you think it will stand the test of time and get that much greater in people's minds?
I don't know if it'll get that much greater, but I think it will stand the test of time. Like, it is kind of surprising to see that we've got such a recent act getting so far, which I think speaks volumes to the performance itself, that it is that good, that it's standing up against all this. And I think Jeremy made a lot of great comments, about of the COVID-19 and what it represents and kind of where it was in that moment. And we've said it for 4 rounds, so I'm going to just continue with Jack White.
All right. Well, Jack White is your champion. Sinead O'Connor, I actually didn't think would get this far coming into the bracket. And I didn't think Jack White, when we started this, I kind of felt I misread SNL fandom, because I kind of thought in my mind, well, I value Jack White's performance that much, but maybe I'm in the minority. And then when the bracket came out, I'm like, 1 seed. I guess everybody values this performance as much as I do. So that was like a pleasant surprise. With Sinead O'Connor, I wasn't sure coming in. I would have liked, because her first song, Success Has Made a Failure of Our Home, it's hard to find. You can find her performance of War. That first song is hard to find, but I wish I could find it. I have seen like live performances of it. It's really beautiful. It's orchestral. I think it would have really played. I bet it did play well on the SNL stage. This was Sinead's second performance, second stint on SNL, and I think her first performance was great too. That's when she was promoting Nothing Compares to You and that album. So this was her second time on SNL. She was kind of a friend of the show until she wasn't, unfortunately. So I'm glad she got recognized, but I think Jack White is such a worthy winner of this thing. Just rocks out, just like owns that stage. Like 8H is just a small, like intimate venue, and Jack White is just such a powerful performer and just owns that stage up there in 8H. So really, well deserving champion. Well done by all of you. Thank you so much. Ryan, what do you want to promote, and how do you think, like, leading into this was this like along the lines of what you thought would be the result?
No, not entirely. And, like a lot of surprises along the way, and happy to be part of it. Of course, we need to state again, justice for Prince. The other thing, Thomas, is like you're mentioning how tricky it is to find that first Sinead performance. That could be said about a lot of SNL's musical history. And I actually do wish, like, I know that it's a question of rights, especially with some of these musical labels having, been bought up by other labels. But I do wish that there was more access to these performances around the world, where people could go back and look at some of their favorite bands or bands they've never even heard of and watch them on SNL. Because there's so many amazing moments. That documentary it was 3 hours and it still didn't even have enough time to get into all of them. So yeah, I that's the thing. I wish that performance was easier to find. I wish a lot of these performances were easier to find. Matinee cast, we're into spring. Spring is a fun time at the movies because it's this really mixed bag. My last episode, I compared spring at the movies to that one table at a wedding where you put all the ones and twos that don't go at any other table. And sometimes if you're sitting at that table, it can be a lot of fun. So come on over to the matinee.ca, take a listen. I think the next episode we're going to do is about Black Bag. So that'll either have just gone up or be going up soon. And thank you so much for bringing me along for this adventure.
Yeah.
And justice for Prince.
Justice for Prince. You're my music man. I wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks, Ryan. Jeremy, what do you think of this, and where can the folks find you?
Yeah, so this was a lot of fun. I'm still riding the high from SNL 50, so anything I can do to talk SNL, I love it. I just had a great conversation with Bill for the SNL Hall of Fame about Dennis Miller, so that was a lot of fun. And of course, you can find us, Thomas and I, on Pop Culture 5, wherever you listen to podcasts, where, talking anything essential in pop culture, music, movies, TV. So please check us out there. And yeah, I really thought Sinead O'Connor didn't surprise me, but Jack White going this far did. So I was pleasantly surprised. Mm-hmm. And I think no matter what, I think at least our championship was the right two. And I was happy about that. So if you wanted to go with Sinead, I understand, but I'm glad we got the final two right. And yeah, this was fun. I always have so much fun for Bill's tournament talk, so it's great.
Yeah, and upcoming, we're going to be doing a 5 essential women of SNL episode. So it's SNL related. We have to kind of throw in SNL into the mix every now and then. So we're going to be talking about amazingly talented women of SNL to coincide with Mother's Day, the end of season 50. So look for that as well. Bill, I think Jan Hooks would be your number one woman of SNL. That's why.
Number one with a bullet. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's no big secret. Thanks for having me. This is a blast. As I said, it's so hard to, as much SNL as I get to talk, to be able to talk about the music. And it's such a subjective thing. If you don't like a band, if you don't like an era, if you don't like a genre, but to be able to come to this conclusion with two unbelievable performances in the history of the show. I'm just glad to be a part of it. You can find me at the SNL Hall of Fame and at the Saturday Night Network very often. You can find me as we wind down SNL 50. So thanks again.
And Brad Robinson, all this SNL 50 festivities and everything, it's really like shine a light on the music aspect of SNL. And I know it's reinvigorated me as an SNL fan to go out and watch more music performances that I may have missed or overlooked. Like, so thank you so much for, as executive producer here, kind of like helping to shine a light on SNL music, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a good time with so much talk of the 50th and music. It was fun. I agree with Ryan too. It'd be great to have those performances more accessible to find, because they're so great and they're such great time capsules, and you can really see people and some really phenomenal performances, many of which we didn't even talk about. So yeah, it was fun. So thanks everybody. And thanks Jeremy. Jeremy was just on our show that dropped a couple days ago. It's Jeremy Dove week this week on the Not Ready for Primetime Project. We just had Jeremy on for the early years. We're halfway through season 4, and we've got some good conversations coming up with my SNL stories. So yeah, keep listening. Thanks.
And the Doobie Brothers, their performance on that episode, they rocked. Like we were
pretty stellar.
about that. Yeah.
I was jealous that you got to cover that, Jeremy. I love some Doobie Brothers.
Yeah, it was so much fun, man.
Heck yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, heck yeah. So thank you all. A huge thank you all for listening. Congratulations to Jack White for winning Best Musical Guest Appearance. Be on the lookout for all of the exciting things happening here at the Not Ready for Primetime Project, including another edition of Bill Swerski's Tournament Talk. For Jeremy Dove, Ryan McNeil, Bill Kenny, Brad Robinson, I'm Thomas Senna. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please take a moment to rate and review the project wherever you find us. You can also drop us a line to let us know what you liked or didn't, and what else you might like to hear in the future at nr4ptproject@gmail.com. And lastly, you can find us on social media everywhere at nr4ptproject. Thanks again for listening. Have a pleasant tomorrow.